Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of our English Conversation podcast. Today's topic explores one of the most frequently discussed questions in psychology and neuroscience. How can compulsive pornography use affect the brain? This episode is designed to educate, not to judge or shame anyone. Human behavior is complex, and different people have different experiences. While many people use pornography without developing serious problems, some people find it becomes difficult to control and begins affecting their daily lives. Today, James and Emily will explain how the brain's reward system works, why certain behaviors become habits, and what scientists currently understand about compulsive pornography use. As always, you'll improve your English while learning about an interesting topic. Let's begin. Hi, Emily. This is a fascinating topic because many people hear claims online that pornography completely rewires the brain, while others say it has no effect at all. The truth seems much more complicated than either extreme.
Hi, James. I agree. Human brains are incredibly adaptable. We know that repeated behaviors can strengthen certain patterns through learning and habit formation. That doesn't mean everyone's brain changes in the same way, but it does explain why some habits become difficult to break.
Before discussing pornography specifically, maybe we should explain how the brain's reward system works.
That's a great place to start. Our brains have reward circuits that encourage behaviors we experience as pleasurable or meaningful. When something feels rewarding, the brain reinforces that behavior, making it more likely that we'll repeat it in the future.
So the reward system is actually helpful because it encourages us to learn and repeat useful behaviors.
Exactly. It helps us learn new skills, enjoy relationships, exercise, accomplish goals, and many other positive activities. The challenge comes when a highly stimulating activity is repeated very frequently and begins replacing healthier sources of satisfaction.
So the issue isn't simply pleasure itself.
No, pleasure is a normal part of human life. The concern arises when one activity starts dominating a person's attention, reducing self-control, or interfering with work, relationships, school, or other important parts of life.
I've heard experts talk about habit loops. Can you explain what that means?
Of course. A habit loop usually has three parts: a trigger, a behavior, and a reward. For example, someone feels stressed after work. That's the trigger. They watch pornography. That's the behavior. They feel temporary relief or pleasure. That's the reward. After many repetitions, the brain begins linking stress with that behavior.
So eventually, simply feeling stressed can automatically trigger the urge.
Exactly. That's how many habits become automatic over time.
That explains why changing habits often involves changing routines, not just relying on willpower.
Absolutely. Understanding the habit loop is often the first step toward changing it.
The more often we repeat a behavior, the stronger that habit can become. But many people ask another question. If someone watches pornography very frequently, can it affect the way they think or behave?
That's a thoughtful question, James. Current research suggests that for some people, especially those with compulsive patterns of use, pornography can become so rewarding that it begins competing with other healthy activities for attention and motivation. However, it's important to remember that experiences vary from person to person.
So we shouldn't assume that everyone who watches pornography will have the same experience.
Exactly. Human behavior is influenced by many factors, including personality, stress, mental health, relationships, environment, and frequency of use. Scientists generally avoid making one-size-fits-all conclusions.
Let's talk about attention. How can habits influence where we focus?
The brain naturally pays attention to things it has learned are highly rewarding. If a person repeatedly returns to the same type of stimulation, their attention may become more easily drawn toward related cues or reminders. This doesn't happen in the same way for everyone, but it can be part of how strong habits develop.
So it's similar to someone who constantly thinks about checking social media because they've developed that routine.
That's a useful comparison. Many habits, whether involving social media, video games, online shopping, or pornography, can become automatic when they're repeated frequently. The brain starts expecting that reward.
What about motivation? Some people say they lose interest in other activities.
Some individuals with compulsive pornography use report exactly that. They may find it harder to enjoy hobbies, exercise, studying, or other meaningful activities because they've become accustomed to seeking quick and intense stimulation. That doesn't mean permanent damage has occurred, but it can make daily life feel less rewarding until healthier habits are rebuilt.
That reminds me of eating too much junk food. Healthy meals can seem less exciting for a while, but many people find that their preferences gradually change when they adopt healthier routines.
That's a helpful analogy. Our brains are adaptable. Just as habits can become stronger through repetition, they can also change through new experiences and consistent practice.
So the brain has the ability to adapt in positive ways as well.
Absolutely. The brain remains capable of learning throughout life. That's one reason people can develop healthier routines, improve self-control, and strengthen new habits over time.
Another thing I've heard people mention is that compulsive habits often become connected to emotions rather than just enjoyment.
That's very true. For some people, the behavior becomes a way of coping with difficult emotions, such as stress, loneliness, anxiety, disappointment, or boredom. Instead of addressing those feelings directly, they rely on the habit for temporary relief.
But because the relief is temporary, the original problem often remains.
Exactly. That's why many experts encourage people to identify the emotions behind the habit, rather than focusing only on the behavior itself. Understanding why the habit happens is often just as important as understanding what happens.
Let's imagine someone has had a stressful day at work. Instead of talking to a friend, exercising, or relaxing in a healthy way, they automatically turn to pornography because that's become their routine.
That's a good example of a habit loop. Over time, the brain begins connecting stress with that behavior. Breaking the cycle usually involves creating a different response to the same trigger.
So instead of trying to eliminate stress completely, which isn't realistic, we change how we respond to it.
Exactly. Stress is a normal part of life. The goal is to develop healthy coping strategies rather than relying on one behavior for emotional relief.
Another interesting point is that many people don't notice the habit becoming stronger. It happens gradually.
Yes, most habits don't become deeply established overnight. They usually develop through many small repetitions. That's why self-awareness is so valuable. Paying attention to your routines can help you notice patterns before they become more difficult to change.
It seems that awareness is the beginning of improvement.
I completely agree. Once people understand their triggers, emotions, and daily routines, they're in a much better position to make intentional choices.
And that's encouraging because it means change is possible.
Absolutely. The brain is designed to learn, and that includes learning healthier habits. While change may take patience and consistent effort, many people successfully replace unwanted habits with routines that better support their goals and well-being.
Today's conversation reminded me that the brain is constantly adapting. The habits we repeat shape our routines, influence our attention, and affect the choices we make each day.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to build habits that support the life we want. Whether we're learning English, exercising, reading, or strengthening relationships, every healthy choice helps reinforce positive patterns over time.
And if someone feels that a habit is becoming difficult to control, seeking support and making gradual changes can be a powerful step forward.
Absolutely. Progress doesn't happen through perfection. It happens through consistent, thoughtful choices repeated every day.
We've spent a lot of time talking about how habits develop, but now I'd like to focus on solutions. If someone realizes that pornography has become a habit they want to change, where should they begin?
I think the first step is awareness rather than self-judgment. Many people become trapped in a cycle of guilt and frustration. They criticize themselves every time they struggle, but harsh self-criticism rarely helps people build lasting change.
That's interesting, because many people believe being harder on themselves will make them more disciplined.
It may seem that way, but in reality, excessive shame can increase stress, and stress itself is often one of the triggers for unhealthy habits. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" it's usually more helpful to ask, "What happened just before the urge appeared?"
So instead of attacking ourselves, we become curious about the pattern.
Exactly. Curiosity helps us understand the habit. Once we understand it, we can begin changing it.
Let's imagine someone notices that they usually experience strong urges late at night.
That's a very common example. If the pattern happens late at night, they might ask several questions. Were they tired? Were they bored? Were they feeling lonely? Had they been scrolling on their phone for a long time? Those details help identify the real trigger.
So the trigger isn't always the urge itself. Sometimes it's exhaustion, boredom, or stress.
Exactly. Many habits begin long before the behavior itself. They begin with emotional or environmental conditions.
Once someone understands their triggers, what's the next step?
The next step is creating an alternative plan. Instead of waiting until the urge becomes overwhelming, decide in advance how you'll respond. For example, if stress is the trigger, perhaps you'll go for a walk, exercise, call a friend, read a book, or spend 15 minutes practicing a hobby.
I like that idea because it gives the brain another direction instead of simply saying, "Don't do it."
Exactly. Our brains usually respond better to replacing a habit than simply trying to eliminate one. Healthy routines gradually become stronger when we repeat them consistently.
Another thing I've noticed is that environment plays a huge role in our behavior.
Absolutely. Our surroundings influence our decisions more than many people realize. If temptations are always within easy reach, resisting them becomes much harder.
So making small changes to the environment can make healthy choices easier.
Yes, some people choose to keep phones out of the bedroom, reduce unnecessary late-night screen time, limit access to certain websites, or create technology-free periods during the day. These changes don't solve everything, but they reduce opportunities for automatic habits.
That reminds me of another important point. Many successful people don't rely entirely on willpower.
Exactly. Willpower is helpful, but it's limited. Smart habits reduce the number of difficult decisions you have to make. A well-designed routine supports good choices before temptation even appears.
Let's talk about exercise again, because it seems to appear in almost every discussion about mental health.
There's a good reason for that. Regular physical activity improves mood, reduces stress, supports better sleep, and gives people a healthy outlet for emotional energy. It won't solve every problem, but it often becomes an important part of a healthier lifestyle.
What about learning new skills?
Learning keeps the brain engaged, whether it's studying English, playing an instrument, drawing, cooking, or learning computer programming. Meaningful activities provide a sense of accomplishment that supports long-term well-being.
I think purpose is another important word.
Absolutely. People often find it easier to reduce unhealthy habits when they're actively working toward meaningful goals. A busy, purposeful life naturally leaves less room for habits that don't support those goals.
Let's discuss setbacks, because many people become discouraged after one mistake.
That's understandable, but setbacks are part of almost every long-term change. One difficult day doesn't erase weeks or months of progress. Instead of giving up, ask yourself what you can learn and how you'll respond differently next time.
So success isn't about never making mistakes.
Exactly. Success is about continuing after mistakes. Every healthy decision is another opportunity to strengthen the new habit.
Very much so. Spending time with supportive friends, family members, mentors, or community groups helps people feel connected. Healthy relationships often reduce loneliness and provide encouragement during difficult times.
And if someone feels completely stuck?
If a habit is causing significant distress or interfering with daily life, talking with a qualified mental health professional can be very helpful. Professional support can provide practical strategies, accountability, and guidance that's tailored to the individual situation.
I think that's an important reminder. Asking for help doesn't mean someone has failed.
Not at all. Asking for help is often a sign of wisdom and strength. Many people make meaningful progress when they have the right support.
Today's conversation reminds me that changing any habit begins with understanding it. Once we recognize our triggers, build healthier routines, and stay patient with ourselves, positive change becomes much more achievable.
I agree. The brain is capable of learning throughout life. Just as habits become stronger through repetition, healthier habits also become stronger through repetition. Every positive choice is an investment in the future.
And perhaps the most encouraging message is that improvement doesn't require perfection, it requires persistence.
Exactly. One good decision may seem small, but hundreds of good decisions repeated over time can completely transform a person's life.
Changing a habit isn't only about stopping one behavior, it's about creating a healthier and more meaningful life.
I completely agree, James. Many people spend all of their energy trying to avoid one habit, but lasting change usually comes from building a life that's full of meaningful relationships, enjoyable activities, personal growth, and healthy routines.
That makes a lot of sense. If someone removes one habit but leaves a gap in their daily life, that empty space often gets filled by another unhealthy habit.
Exactly. That's why replacement is so important. Healthy habits don't simply remove negative behaviors, they create positive routines that make life more satisfying.
Let's imagine someone has made good progress over the past few months. They've reduced unwanted habits and feel more in control. How can they maintain that progress?
The first step is remembering that personal growth is an ongoing process. Instead of thinking, I'm finished, it's healthier to think, I'm continuing to build the life I want. Small daily habits continue to matter even after significant progress.
So success isn't really a destination.
That's right. It's a collection of daily choices. Every healthy decision strengthens the habits you want to keep.
One thing I've learned is that consistency is usually more powerful than intensity.
Absolutely. Some people become extremely motivated for a few days and try to change everything at once, but sustainable progress usually comes from realistic habits that can be repeated every day.
That reminds me of language learning. Studying English for 30 minutes every day often produces better results than studying for 5 hours only once a week.
Exactly. The same principle applies to almost every area of life. Small actions, repeated consistently, produce remarkable long-term results.
Let's talk about technology. We live in a world where our phones are always nearby.
Technology itself isn't the problem, it's how we use it. The internet can help us learn new skills, communicate with friends, study languages, and access valuable information. The goal is to use technology intentionally instead of automatically.
So rather than asking, how much time am I spending online, we might ask, how am I using that time?
That's an excellent question. Spending an hour learning a language or reading educational material is very different from spending an hour mindlessly scrolling without purpose.
Another thing I've noticed is that healthy relationships seem to play a big role in long-term well-being.
They certainly do. Strong friendships, supportive family members, community groups, and meaningful conversations help people feel connected. Human connection often reduces loneliness and provides encouragement during difficult times.
Sometimes people isolate themselves when they're struggling.
Yes, and isolation can make many challenges feel even heavier. Reaching out to someone you trust doesn't solve every problem immediately, but it reminds you that you don't have to face everything alone.
Let's discuss purpose. Why is having meaningful goals so important?
Purpose gives direction to our daily actions. When people are working towards something meaningful, whether it's improving their health, learning English, building a business, raising a family, or helping others, they often make decisions that support those goals.
So instead of constantly asking, what should I avoid, we begin asking, what kind of person do I want to become?
Exactly. Identity is powerful. When you see yourself as someone who values discipline, learning, kindness, and healthy habits, your daily decisions gradually begin reflecting that identity.
I think that's one of the most encouraging ideas we've discussed. People aren't trapped by their past habits.
Not at all. Human beings have an incredible ability to learn and grow. While change isn't always easy, it's possible. Every day offers another opportunity to make choices that move you closer to the life you want.
Another lesson I've learned is the importance of patience. People often expect dramatic changes within a few weeks.
That's true, but meaningful growth usually happens gradually. Think of planting a tree. You don't see dramatic changes every single day, yet over months and years, the tree grows stronger. Personal growth often works the same way.
I love that comparison because it reminds us to trust the process.
Exactly. Even when progress feels slow, consistent effort is still creating positive change beneath the surface.
Before we finish this series, what's the most important message you'd like listeners to remember?
I'd say this. Don't define yourself by one habit or one difficult chapter in your life. Every person is capable of learning, improving, and making healthier choices. Focus on building the future instead of constantly regretting the past.
That's wonderful advice. I'd add one more thought. Success isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming a little better than you were yesterday. Those small improvements eventually become extraordinary transformation.
Today's conversation reminds us that lasting change isn't built through guilt or fear. It's built through understanding, patience, healthy habits, supportive relationships, and consistent action.
Exactly. Every healthy decision strengthens the future you're creating. Every positive habit becomes another step toward a more balanced and meaningful life.
And remember, no matter where you are today, your next choice matters. Every new day is another opportunity to grow.
Thank you for joining us for this series, How Compulsive Pornography Use Can Affect the Brain. Throughout these episodes, James and Emily explored how the brain's reward system supports habit formation, why some people develop compulsive patterns of use, how healthier routines can replace unwanted habits, and why long-term change depends on patience, consistency, and self-awareness. If a habit is causing significant distress or interfering with your work, relationships, or daily life, remember that support is available. Speaking with a trusted friend or qualified mental health professional can be an important step toward positive change. We hope this series has helped you improve your English while encouraging thoughtful conversations about habits, well-being, and personal growth. Thank you for listening. Keep learning, keep growing, keep making choices that support the life you want to build. We'll see you in the next English Conversation podcast. Goodbye, everyone.